everybody. Good afternoon. We're right at 1 o'clock. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm Tiffany from Distributor Central, and I've got Jacob from the Chest. And I don't know that we've ever done this like Jacob's going to do it today, but Jacob is going to present very live and very dynamically some of the things that the Chest does. I love the Chest. I love Jacob. I love his mom so much. They're just probably some of the greatest people ever. I've had to order, not had to, I've had the pleasure of ordering some stuff from the Chest, and every time their whole staff is just so great. I got to do this really cool puzzle this winter, and they just really worked with me on my random idea and made it come to life. And to have a supplier that can help you with your crazy and make it come to life is just a really valuable asset and a partner to have. And the Chest just really does that. I've seen some of the coolest things out of when I've visited their facility. So I think it's really neat that Jacob's going to present it this way and open it up for questions. I think they do so many cool things. It's hard to always understand that, maybe flat on a website. So this is a really great way to be able to understand how they can take an idea and turn something into life and really be creative with packaging and some of the products that they provide. So while he's talking and as he's introducing himself, send as many questions as you possibly can, because this is an opportunity for you as a distributor to know every possible thing that you could ever know about custom packaging and how it can change your customer's life. Because I know when I get something, I kind of nerded out a little bit about opening it and the packaging portion of it, just as I am about the inside part. So, and I think that really makes a difference and can really set a distributor apart with your customers. So go ahead, Jacob.
Well, thank you for such kind words, Tiffany. I hope everyone has the experience with the Chest that you described, because in the era of automation and directory phone devices and things like that, we actually do have someone that picks up the phone every time you call and says, "Hi, my name is Deb. Welcome to the Chest." So that's really the MO behind our company, quite honestly. It's that personal touch. Again, like I said, my name is Jacob from the Chest. We are located right outside of St. Louis in Washington, Missouri. We are a 100% domestic manufacturer. We do not import at all. I'll get into some of the nuances of that as part of this presentation. And the other thing that may or may not check any boxes for you guys is we're a woman-owned business. My mother started the company about 35 years ago. I've been with the team for 15, probably close to 15 years now. So we're a family business in so much as my mother owns it and pays me to be here. But we really do try on every project, whether we get the project through the PO process or it's simply a quote and we end up not getting it. We really do try and add that personal customer service touch, and it's not just sales speak. I mean, we live that out. So again, we are the Chest. We've been around for about 35 years. We have always been in the packaging space in our industry, even when it wasn't as popular as what it is today. The reason I bring up the time frame or the duration we've been in a business is we've learned a lot through trial and error over that time frame. And we realize as much as anybody, if not more so, that there are a lot of packaging options out there today. Prior to the pandemic, it was obviously moving in that direction. Our business was growing tremendously. And then COVID hit, and it just went bonkers. So I think it was great in the sense that we pivoted as an industry, and we're able to see the value in a new way of doing things that, quite honestly, I don't think is going away anytime soon. I think for the foreseeable future, the packaging component of how we deliver our goods is going to be crucial and very important with our revenue increases or lack thereof. So one thing that I want to focus on is not how I or my mother or anyone else that's on I would say the second phase of their career, how they receive goods, how they traditionally did that. We really need to be focusing on how the next generation has expected to receive product from promotional or in the promotional space. Our trade shows have changed. Our general way of doing business has really morphed into something that I don't think I could have predicted several years ago. And I'm not trying to base this whole presentation on because of COVID, this is the way it is. It was already trending in that direction. I think what happened is people found it's not as daunting as what maybe they thought it was, or they just simply had to do it because they had to put food on the table. And so now that it's become part of an aspect of their business that, again, I don't think is going away. Again, we produce everything domestically. We do all product safety testing, inks, all that jazz material. The other thing I want to hit on before I start showing you guys some goods is the ecological impact of packaging and its, I want to say, negative connotations of that people have surrounding that. So all of our material, all of it, chipboard, corrugate, any of the packaging material, including our puzzles, is up to 80% post-consumer recycled content. That's important because before we even create a product, we are already reusing 80% of something of a product that was something else prior. So we're continuing that life cycle of that material. And then other than the foam, which I'll show you guys, we do as part of our insert tray options, but everything else is 100% recyclable, down to the shrink wrap we use when we fulfill and kit the projects and then send them out. So if your customers always push back about paper not being eco-friendly, I would push them back and say, actually, it's quite the opposite. We're probably one of the most environmentally friendly materials in our industry, and so we're proud of the fact that we operate under solar power. We have all of our material, like the scrap that comes from the boxes and the puzzles and everything else that we produce. All of that is 100% recycled. We have a baler, we bale that up, and then we have tractor trailer trucks that come a couple times a week to pick up that scrap and then send it on down to its next life. So I'm going to quickly jump in. Tiffany mentioned that this may not be your usual format. We're not your usual company. Everything we do is 100% custom. Showing slides on a shared screen, I don't know, really gets us to where we want you to see our product. I've got some links and things that I can share to show our gallery pages and our case histories and those kind of things. But I think it's most impactful to actually show you the three-dimensional product, open it, and show that presentation. Because like Tiffany said, a lot of the fun getting this stuff is opening the packaging. More and more feedback we find on Instagram and YouTube, TikTok. The goods are arbitrary, whether it's in the sports world or if it's in the cosmetic world. The product is the product, right? But the packaging is often what gets more comments than the actual hard goods that are being shared. So with that, I'm going to jump into a couple pieces real quick. So I'm going to go back and forth because my table is not close. The first one I'm going to show you is, this is a kit we did for Jefferson College, and another thing we're finding as part of the pandemic process that we went through, a lot of folks that handed out goods at a sign-in table or at an event table, we're finding they're kitting those things, those pieces, and they're sending prior to the event. This was a graduation kit we did for them. They wanted to do it fairly cost-friendly, and so typically when it's on the lighter side of the budget, we recommend going with what is called a shred fill. This is a Tuck style box. It locks into itself. It's a shipper box. There's no need for another packaging piece. But then when you open it, you've got your goods. So you've got the diploma, you've got the rally towel, the water bottle, the stress ball. There was a couple other pieces in there that we didn't get. But the whole point is to create that kit. And again, we use the shred fill, which nests those pieces and keeps them from shifting in transit. And you know, the other thing that's important is the presentation when they open the piece needs to be uniform, organized. It looks like it was done with a purpose as opposed to just tossing everything into a package. So we do a lot of the shred fill. I would say close to 50% of the projects that we do are in that 100 to 500, 750 range. And, you know, the budget may not be there for a custom insert tray that I'm gonna show you in a second. I mentioned a second ago, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you now. So our boxes are 200-pound tested corrugate material for the most part. And we have several different styles I can show you, which I will. But anyway, it is the shipping box. You don't need an additional packaging piece. What we do is we shrink that with a heavy gauge shrink wrap, and then we put the label on the outside of the box. We do that for a couple reasons. One, it meets the security requirements of FedEx, UPS, and USPS. They have to be secured on, 3 sides. So it takes care of that. We don't know why you would pay to buy, pay for this beautiful piece of packaging, and then you put strapping tape all over it. The other thing is it protects the imprint for the same reason. You spent, a few dollars on this packaging piece. It should look in good condition when it's received, not scuffed up and damaged. We are the antithesis of the Amazon experience, right? We want that logo to be broadcast through that process, through that logistical process. Just think of how many eyes see that brand as it goes through the FedEx system, UPS system, USPS, whatever it is. The other thing is people are more likely to keep these products around if they're in good shape. I know I've got a couple little ones, and they're always bringing home this wonderful artwork that I'm fatherly obligated to keep until they're 18, in which we throw it away when they go to college. But where do you keep all that stuff? Again, it may sound silly, but that brand is still around, which is the whole point of what it is we do as an industry as a whole. So that is the shipping piece of it, which is important. This is a fun one we did, and this is going to show you the insert tray capabilities we have. This is, if anybody's been paying any attention for the last 5 years, everybody and their brother has come out with a new drink product, right? So Poland Springs, they're part of the Nestle family. They did a complete rebrand. It was like 5 or 6 different labels. Wonderful for us. But anyway, what they did was they created a tasting kit for each of those new flavors that were being introduced. So I'm dealing with a light here on a shiny surface. So anyway, you've got the 4 selections. You've got a custom tray to hold those pieces in place through transit and also as part of the presentation when they open it. And then this flap, the lid, actually has the 4 flavors, tells you a little bit about the flavors of all of them. And then you've got the little sample glasses. So you have like a little tasting kit. What a great way for a beverage company to introduce their new flavors to a C-store general manager, right? You're not just showing up with a 6-pack or a case and saying, hey, we need shelf space. You've created this experience through the packaging that otherwise you wouldn't be able to achieve. I'm going to show you another beverage one. This is just a simple container. I like to show this one because it shows that tone-on-tone imprint, which has been pretty popular in the last, I don't know, probably several years, I guess. But it's a simple screen imprint with a clear overcoat on it. So again, simple tux box, but then when you open it, you've got the presentation of those cans in a very organized process. There was an insert card that explained why they were getting the piece. And again, just a great vehicle for introducing that new product to whoever you're trying to sell it to or your client's trying to sell it to. One thing that is going to be very big, we're all seeing it, is the labor market. Currently, we're all fighting for the same people, which I think, over time it's going to work itself out. But one of the things we've realized and noticed as orders are coming in to start 2022, as people are back in the office or making that transition back in, as we're winding out of this, how are companies recognizing their talent, right? Every time one of the other facilities in our business park puts up a new hiring sign, we always check and see what that hourly rate is to see if we're going to get a bunch of people asking for raises. And that's just the world we live in. But if you are a engineering company or a tech company where you have trained and fostered those employees and they're worth a lot of money to you, how are your clients keeping them around? This is a fun one we did for Equitable. It was a quote contest where if you got a certain threshold of quotes submitted for that period, whether it was a month or a quarter or whatever it was, you were gifted a Google Mini. And the whole point is they very easily could have just come and dropped these off at the employees' desks, right? But the whole point is that gifting experience creates something that makes that person feel more valued. I always use a silly analogy. Why do we wrap holiday presents and birthday gifts and those things? We do it because it's important, right? And we feel that the same can be said for the packaging side of things. I'm going to show you one more before I open it up. I think actually two more. Sorry, this one and one more. The influencer market is growing. It's growing considerably, and it's having more and more influence on people's purchasing habits. So we're doing more and more of these influencer kits. And one of the things that when you're in that market, you have to wow them back to some of the packaging getting more attention than the gift itself. So this is one we had done for CoverGirl, and it's a really cool piece. It's actually our two-piece style. So the lid removes. Of course, I dropped the insert card. So here you've got your romance card, your information card, whatever the nomenclature is, but basically telling the individual why they're receiving that gift. And then what they did was they introduced the fall color palette this past year for CoverGirl's fall color lines, right? On the inside of that lid, there's a note that says, looks fit for royalty. And so as you're looking through this package, if you're the recipient, you see this little glimmering thing here. And what is this, I find? But your tiara for royalty. So it was a fun little way of including that messaging all the way through, and plus making those individuals feel important, because that's the whole point behind the influencing process, right? Behind that concept is to make people feel rich and famous. Now that I've kind of showed you a few of the things, our capabilities, we've got about 2,500 box dies. One thing is I go through the process, and I'll send, if I can, send you guys a couple PDFs of cheat sheets that we've created. So the chest doesn't produce any of the hard goods. I don't do mugs, wearables, t-shirt, caps, any of that stuff. But what I do is I receive those goods from any individual supplier, and then we create the packaging piece and also do the fulfillment and the individual distribution. If need be, I can just do the boxes. We can do any part of that process. But one of the things that's nice about where we're located is we're smack dab in the middle of the country. And so logistically, we're a 3-day ship pretty much everywhere in the continental United States. So from a logistics standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. The other thing is being located in Missouri, our labor rates, our cost of living rates are in the bottom percentage of all 50. So we pass that savings on to you guys in terms of our labor costs and those kind of things, because all fulfillment is manpower, right? There's no automation for putting random things in the packaging, whether it be into the shred fill or the tray. So you're going to find that our fulfillment rates are very, very competitive, maybe with some of the bigger fulfillment locations that you guys have been used to using. So like I said, we can handle everything from the packaging all the way through the distribution. We've been doing it for a long time, and yeah, so I'm happy to answer some questions and turn this over to like an interactive type thing. Zoom is still a wonderful opportunity for us to stay in contact, but for what we do, that interaction back and forth is often the most efficient and beneficial way of getting information as to what we can do and how we can help. Mute. You on mute?
I only do this 300 times a day. So
I still do it too. We've been doing this for 2 years, and I still do it too.
So how do you handle Canadian dropship? So if I'm going to source product and then I'm going to have to ship some to Canada and some to the US, what's the best way to manage that?
So due to our trade agreements, shipping into Canada outside of some of the products is no different than shipping to Illinois. Live goods, we ran into a situation where they wanted to send some succulents. And I also think due to the last 2 years, everyone's heightened sense of like, oh my gosh, we can't receive this stuff. So you got to be careful with live goods, food products, those kind of things. But if we're just talking standard issue promo pieces, we've never had a problem. One thing I will note, though, I left out, I apologize, but as we were all working through these inventory issues and supply chain things, very rarely, because I know there's a lot of other major manufacturers that are now doing packaging where if you get 4 or 5 of their items, they'll put them in a box for you and send them out. That's kind of that's a part of our business model, right? Ours is the packaging is as important as the promo piece because it's the vehicle, it's the marketing piece, right? But the problem is you're not able to find 3, 4, and 5 pieces from the same suppliers right now. And so you're having your mug from over here, your cap from over here, and whatever. Well, they're not going to take competing most of the time. They're not going to take competing, suppliers' products. So we'll handle all that for you, and I don't care who they come from for the most part. So anyway, I wanted to get that in. But Tiffany, back to the question, we shipped to Canada. I've probably got 500 pieces going to Canada today, and there's no issue with it whatsoever.
What if I have a project that I know that I'm going to need 300 pieces over 12 months, but I'm going to need to send them out periodically? Do you have the capacity to do like kind of release fulfillment?
Yes, we do. Yes, the answer is yes. We're doing it on a case-by-case basis based on the project. We got stuck with a lot of inventory when everything shut down because people just weren't sending them out as they had planned, and those programs kind of were on a hiatus. Well, unfortunately, I got stuck eating the storage bills for a lot of folks, and I don't mean anything by that. It's just we learned that until things are 100% sorted out, we know we're moving. You know what I'm saying? There's not going to be any more like, oh crap, we've got another variant coming or whatever. We're doing it on a case-by-case basis. So the best thing to do is just reach out to me. But I don't see why it would be an issue. When you're a custom shop like us, you have the ability to create a program for every project, and so you don't have to fit nicely into one slot in order to make it work for us.
So if I know that I'm going to do a project for a program and I know that the 5 products and these are what they are, how do I get you like the sizes? Do I just send you the samples or the products and you kind of measure and tell me what I need?
Wonderful, wonderful question. Whoever sent that gets the A+ for the day. The most important thing about any packaging is what's going in it, because that's going to dictate the size, right? And so you don't want to have a big old box and just a couple of things because it changes that whole presentation piece. The best thing to do as projects start to develop is all I really need to quote it is the dimensions of the piece. And a lot of the time, simply sending me those product links. So like if it's an ETS tumbler, right? Just send me the link to that item in the email along with the ball cap or the journal or whatever. And I've got a CAD program where I just enter those coordinates and it pumps out, 2 or 3 options from my box inventory that then I say, hey, I've got a couple options. What do you think about these 2? Whatever. And then once that gets signed off on, then we'll go through the quoting process. We have a policy outside. I mean, I'm not going to say this has happened every time, but we have a policy of returning all quotes, custom or otherwise, within 24 hours. Sure. And so if you need 180,000 of something and I've got to, do some checking on material and that kind of thing, it may be a little bit longer, but that's on the outside of the norm, right? So if you send me an email on a Monday night, by close of business on Tuesday, you better have your pricing. That's just how we do things. And so it's not like quoting it takes a week, right? Like, oh my God, I got to sit and wait for this quote to come back. There are multiple steps of it, but we've streamlined it pretty smoothly, so we turn pricing pretty quick. But I don't need those products because you're going to incur freight charges and those kind of things. Once we get the purchase order, once they say it's a green light, then I'll ask for samples, verify that everything fits, and then we move forward with the project.
As a company, I mean, I know why you guys are so cool because you guys are cool. But like as a company, when you think about other packaging companies or just other things that might be like in your space, what differentiates the chest from other companies?
A couple different things. Number one, I think is an invaluable asset to you all is the length of time we've been doing this. Mm-hmm. Because my biggest asset to you guys is what I've already done, right? All those images, all those case histories, those things are like packaged nicely, pun intended, and just ready to be sold to the next insurance company or the next real estate company or the next financial whatever, because they're very potable. So that's something that we got over time, right? But what separates us from our competition? Number one, the customer service side is second to none. It has to be when you're a company of our size. We over communicate. I think if you were to say we have a fault, we over communicate. But in the world we're living in today, I don't know that that's such a bad thing anymore. The fact that we do everything domestically is very important. Our turn times, our production times, right now we're looking at 5 to 10 days on pretty much everything we do. The other thing that in terms of our service portfolio, there are not any other box companies that I'm aware of. Well, that's not true. There's a couple, but for the most part, box companies don't do fulfillment. They're just producing your box. They're shipping it to a fulfillment center. You're getting in line, and it's being fulfilled in part as part of that queue. Well, freight isn't free anymore, right? And so the biggest thing we look at from that proposal is, why are you paying to ship the boxes twice? Because you're paying for them to go from the box maker to the fulfillment center, which is going to be one of the highest freight charges you have outside of probably drinkware or coffee mugs, that kind of thing, something else that's heavy and bulky. So when we handle the fulfillment side of it, we eliminate that, just scratch that line item off. And also, when you're able to, when you vertically integrate any service, you're doing it cheaper than if that's their standalone business. Yep. So when you look at the totality of the cost, yeah, there's guys that do boxes cheaper than us. And I say cheaper for a reason, because I think they're cheaper. There's folks that they can beat us on certain things, and I'll concede that completely. But when you look at the totality of what we can do, I really don't know that there's anybody in the industry that can compete with us with our experience. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant at all. I hope it doesn't come across.
You should be arrogant about your business. Everyone should be arrogant about the business.
Well, right, I get that, but I mean, in terms of being able to take it from the beginning to the fulfillment and distribution of the project, there's really not anybody else I'm aware of that handles that side of it the way that we do.
There's not a lot more questions. What is your favorite thing? What's your favorite project? Like, when you think about all the years you've been in the industry, is there like something that you got to work on that you're like, wow, this is a good day to get up, put pants on, and go to the office?
Well, I'm going to give you the politician answer real quick and say, like, every day's cool, and there's days that suck. Don't get me wrong, we all have those, right? But I don't put a logo on pen, and that's not I'm not trying to rail against anybody that makes pens. They probably make a better income than I do. My point, though, is it's the same every day, right? And when I wake up and I come to the office or I'm out traveling, people approach us about things that aren't in ESP. They aren't they aren't on Distributor Central's profile. They aren't on Sage, whatever, right? Any of those products, they don't have those as something you can just click on and say, yeah, I want this in green. Yeah. It's the formulation of an idea. It's more of the marketing and less of just the branding. But that's what, and that's the only reason my mother was able to get me from my previous career here, is because I knew it was different. I grew up in the industry. I knew what we did. And I always say, if I had to do a commodity business, or if I had to work for a commodity business, it wouldn't fit for me. But a couple of years ago, I'm going to tell you one project, and it's so simple, but it's when marketing clicks, right? So there was a reboot of the MacGyver show, and the show was horrible. I mean, I watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and had to like, okay, can't do it. But Comic-Con, whenever 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that came on, there was a street team handout. It was a little postcard that had a paper clip laminated to it, right? So it went through the lamination process. It said the date of the premiere, what channel it was on, ABC, NBC, or whatever. It was a little 3x5 card, but it had a paper clip laminated to it. And the tagline was, the only tool you'll ever need.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's simple, but it gets both demographics. If you know what the show was, or if you remembered the show, you're going to tune in because you're like, oh yeah, I really dug that show 25 years ago.
Yeah.
If you are a 22-year-old that doesn't remember that show, but you're like, a paperclip, the only tool I'm ever going to need, what's this all about? Like, and you've heard, everybody knows MacGyver and the nomenclature, so you know like what it's about. But it was just one of those things where it was such a simple piece, and we did like 28,000 of them, just mass handed out. And that one always gets back to me because it connects on so many levels. But in terms of the packaging, I couldn't begin to say this one was my favorite, or this pyramid award was great, or whatever. Like, I mean, they're all cool. They're all different. So, but that MacGyver thing really caught me. I don't know. That made me weird.
No, it's very cool. Like, it's very cool because it's all, I mean, like that, I did a 50-piece puzzle. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was a 50-piece puzzle. And it was all because I was doing puzzles with, I think I told you, I've been doing puzzles with my kids as like a bonding thing. And then like, I was like, this is a marketing thing too. And then like, just all, and things just like click in your head, and then everything becomes very real. And then you can tell a very real story. And packaging very much tells a real story. So it's all very cool.
The one thing I would say about what that story you just shared is, the product is the product, right? Mm-hmm. But what you walked away from was the experience, because you just mentioned doing something with your kids. Well, that puzzle was a vehicle to create that experience that happens to be branded.
Right.
And that's exactly what we do. And quintessential, what the chess stands for is the packaging is the vehicle for that experience for the brand. And I know it's not cheesy and Pollyanna or whatever, but it's true. And it's and the market's supply and demand at its core is showing that that's the case, because the demand for packaging is there. We happen to be your supplier. So and again, I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, we'll see where we are. Let's talk again in 18 months. But I think just the exposure that everybody had to that experience, everybody became an influencer for 2 years. Which is awesome. So.
Well, Jacob, thank you so much for sharing with us about packaging. And I think it's something that, not all distributors always understand. It's something that I think could be very difficult to understand just in a flat website, just like looking at it. So I really like that you were able to present it in a live and more dynamic way, because it is something that you can definitely add on to the products that you're selling to your customers, and add on that experience, and add on to your invoice too. So I think it's like a win-win for everybody.
There's no set margin for custom packaging.
That's a definite margin increaser. So thank you so much for sharing that. The Chess is such a good company, so thanks for all that knowledge. If anybody has any questions, just reach out to Jacob, and everyone will get a follow-up and a recording of it, and Jacob will get you everybody's contact information. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Hey, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.